Hello, welcome back to Emmy's Pepper Patch. Today we want to actually put our seedling habas into their final containers and so that they can start growing outside in their final destination. These plants, as you've seen in my previous videos, we started these out in seed starting trays and a seed starting mix on a heating pad and under grow lights. And then once they germinated, we moved them off of the heat pad underneath the grow lights. And then when they were big enough, we transplanted them, potted them into these 5-inch pots here to finish growing inside. And then the last week, well, I've been hardening them off slowly. Till the last couple of days, they've been spending all day and night out in the sun and in the wind. Now it's very important that you harden these off, because what that does is it gives the leaves sun protection, and it provides a stronger stalk here. Because they've been growing in the wind, they'll get more wind resistant, and the leaves will actually get thicker. They'll form a layer like a sunscreen layer. If you were to just take these out from inside and put them out in the sun, especially here in South Texas in Zone 9B, they would just get sunburned. The leaves would get white burn marks and just start shriveling up and drying, and you could actually just kill your plant because they couldn't handle the sun. So after gradual exposure to the sun, the leaves get darker, they get thicker, and they form that sunscreen protection that they'll need to finish growing and eventually harvesting fruit. So it's very important if you start them inside to start getting them used to the sun and the wind, so they get a stronger stem and stronger leaves. So today we're going to put these in their final containers. These contain the soil mix that we covered in the last video. My beautiful wife has got them all put in these cloth pots. Now, what I'm using is a cloth 7-gallon pot, holds 7 gallons of soil mix. And what I like about the cloth pots is it's hard, you cannot overwater these. I mean, you could, but you'd have to dump a ton of water all at once. For being cloth, the excess water will just run out of the cloth, compared to, let's say, a plastic or a ceramic pot where it just holds that water, and eventually you get root rot and your plants die because they're just drowning. With these cloth pots, the excess water runs out. Also, they're good for air pruning, as we discussed with my seed starting tray. When the roots get to the edge of this cloth pot, and to detect the oxygen, they start growing, they'll form another root and start spreading out. So what happens is, instead of the roots just start circling around here, they'll grow to the edge and stop, and then form more roots and start branching out. Also, with them being in pots, if they're in the sunlight too long, I can move them to shade. I can move them out of the shade to the morning sun. That way they're mobile, because once you put them if you put them in the soil garden, then that's where they are. You can't move them. We have several hundred in plots, so it's not like we're out every day shifting them all around, but we can place them exactly where they get the minimum required sun, but the minimum required of shade during the day. We can arrange the garden depending on the shade patterns in my yard as it changes through the years. All right, so first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go in here and dig a hole the size of this container here. Then I'm going to put a small handful of my fertilizer mix on the bottom. And again, this is fast release and slow release. So they'll get some immediate relief, some immediate nutrients from this, but also it'll take about 6 months for the rest of it to actually break down. Now, my soil mix does contain a small amount of that fertilizer mix already in it. Plus, you remember I'm using cow manure compost. So that's organic material that can take 3 to 6 months to help feed your plants as well. Now you realize my growing season extends to almost New Year's Day. Here in 9B, I've been known to harvest peppers on New Year's Day. So I've got the rest of the growing season. Today is May 17th, but I'll be able to pick these peppers all the way through December. All right, once we get a hole dig and some fertilizer in there, I'm going to squeeze this pot, support the plant, barely tip it over, carefully place it in the pot, give it a good press so the bottom of the soil mix makes good contact with the soil mix in the container, and then I'm going to collapse the soil around that, and then I'm going to get another push down to seek the plant and the roots in the soil so they make good contact with the soil, so as they start growing they can now start expanding out. You don't want to leave air gaps around your roots in the soil, because remember, the roots will start drying, will stop growing and start dying. So what I do is I give it a good press in, I dig a little trench around it, around the plant in the soil, so as we water it, the water on the surface will gather at the bottom of that and actually help help support the plant. Now, what I'm noticing on these is they're actually starting to get blooms on them at this young age. That's how much healthy they were. What I do is I'll pinch those off. These are much too young to start getting blooms on them. Okay. Then I'll take a stake, 4-foot bamboo stake, put it close to the plant, but not so close that I interrupt the root ball on the bottom. Place that to the bottom of the pot. Then I'll take a fastener, and I use these plant ties here, and I loosely will tie them to the stake so that they're allowed to move a little bit, forming that stronger stem, but also close enough to the stake so that if we get a little strong wind, a little rainstorm or something, we reduce the chance of breaking a stem off, which kills the plants. All right, again, the plant has a little room to move, so it can get that, so it gets its little exercise, so it helps with its stems, but where it can't move far enough, where we actually snap the stem. Okay, we've got the straw. Now what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna apply my mulch layer. I use unspreadable straw from my big box store, but this is guaranteed to have no weed seeds, no grass seeds, etc. in it, because if you put that in here, those seeds may germinate in here, and now your plant is competing against those weeds. So I just start forming a nice thick straw layer around the plant. And what this does is this keeps the soil moisture longer, because down here in South Texas, that summer come July, August, September, where it's over 100 degrees every day, will draw that soil out faster. Now, what you need to learn here is, even though I've got these in cloth bags, they will dry out faster than if they're in the ground. Okay, I put the straw on there to keep the top of the soil wet longer, also to help keep from weeds forming in there and help preventing some types of bugs. But remember, these sides are exposed to the heat as well, so you've got to water these more than you would with a plant that's in the ground. You want to make sure it's completely covered, the top of the soil is covered. This will stay wet. It helps keep that surface of the soil wetter. And then what I'll do is then at that point, I take these are just cheap tomato cages from the big box stores. I like to use them as further support. And what this does is the central stake will keep the central stem supported, but the leaves will grow up into this and they'll be able to grow out. And as they get fruit on them, these tomato cages can keep it contained and also support the weight of the branches as they get the fruit on them. And it just helps contain as this grows up. It just helps, we can spread the branches out here as it goes, but it's just central. It just helps keep the stem from being broken and just helps keep it contained. Well, that's it for these ceiling habas. These will go in my container garden now to be put out, and I'll be putting out further updates as they start growing peppers, as they start getting taller. But that's the end of my seed starting series. Now I'll just start bringing you garden updates to show you how my garden is flourishing, the harvesting, the fertilizer that we have to start doing by next week, and then how we're watering and so forth. I want to thank you for joining us for the seed starting series. I'm gonna plant these other two, but I just wanted to bring you a series and then show you all the updates from the year. Thank you.